Okay, today I'm going to share with you how to talk like an HBS student, and also, unfortunately for Blue and Bell, it's also bath time. Anyway, for some reason, normal words have slightly different meanings here, so I'm going to go over these new vocab words that you can practice so when you show up at HBS, you can not just walk proudly, but also sound like you know what you're saying. Alrighty, let's start. I'm an engineer and I've never heard so many people say calculus so much. People will say, well, that's just part of the calculus. But we're definitely not doing any calculus in business school. The most we do is basic algebra and use Excel whenever anything gets remotely complex. The dictionary definition of calculus is the branch of mathematics that deals with finding and properties of derivatives and integrals of functions by methods originally based on the summation of infinitesimal differences. The two main types are differential calculus and integral calculus. But what business people mean when they say calculus is, well, I've thought about it. There's some trade offs. There's probably a mathematical way to explain it, but rather than explain it with numbers, I'm just going to try and sound like I crunch the numbers by naming the most complex math class I've ever done, and that's calculus. So if Blue were to use calculus in a sentence with this new definition, he might say, Mom, what part of the calculus don't you understand? Why do we need baths if we regularly groom ourselves? The next term is double click. I'm sure everyone knows what a double click is, but it's when you click twice to click into a link or a photo or something on a computer screen. In business class, it means to dive deeper into some topic. I want to double click on so and so's comment. What a strange way to articulate something in a conversation when people only double click on a computer mouse or trackpad. So Belle might say, Mom, can we double click into why we need baths all the time? The next term is haircut. The dictionary says is a style in which a person's hair is cut. How I've heard it used in class is everyone just wants to take their haircut. Haircut basically just means a small percentage off the top. So a typical sentence might be trying to put our products in retail isn't that attractive because the wholesalers and the distributors will all take their haircut, leaving less profit for us. So with this context, Blue might say, Mom, wouldn't it be nice if Belle and I could take a haircut off your salary for new treats? The next one is another math one. The phrase is solve for. This basically is synonymous to other phrases that I've heard more of, which is like optimize for and index on. Basically, all these phrases highlight something that we should be focusing on, but somehow makes you sound smarter. We need to optimize for revenue. We need to index on sales. We need to solve for the decrease in revenues. So if Belle were to use all of these in a sentence, she might say, we should be optimizing for more kibbles rather than more baths. Blue, do you have a solve for this? Don't you think we should index more on happily eating kibbles rather than miserably taking more baths? The thing is that it sounds weird, but just barely. It just sounds a little bit more pretentious. But if everyone is saying stuff like this, it kind of just infiltrates the common language. So let's just put everything together what we learned so far. So, Blue and Bell, the reason why you get baths is because I'm optimizing for your attitude towards water. If we double click into this further, that means that I am indexing on the fact that someday you might need a bath, so I'm solving for that training now. It's part of the calculus that if you start taking baths young and have baths regularly, if you need an emergency bath someday, I won't have to bring you to the vet to get it done because they will take a large haircut. All right. Once I've gotten over the cringe of saying that, we can continue. All right. So the next phrase is pressure test. Using this in a sentence, it might sound like we need to pressure test all these assumptions, which basically means I don't agree with your assumptions, so let me tell you why. I guess just add some pressure to the person who said something you disagree with and say their thought process doesn't hold up to the pressures of your perceived reality. So Blue might say, Mom, we need to pressure test your assumption that we won't behave during Black Swan events. Which leads us to our next term, which is Black Swan event. This one makes more sense to me, but I still never heard of it before coming to HBS. Black Swan event is basically just a really rare event, like how black swans are rare, I guess. For example, COVID was a black swan event. And how people typically use this in class is like, oh, this model doesn't account for black swan events, which of course it doesn't, because all models are wrong, but most are useful. So you can't predict the future, really. The next phrase is option value. How I've heard it used before is we need to optimize for option value, or we should not discount the value of option value, which, okay, I get it. We just want options. So option value is the value assigned to having options. But why can't we just call it optionality, though? Belle might say, the option value of where to sleep is so nice. We can choose the couch, the bed, the strawberry box, the bath mat, the counter, wherever we want. And the last word for today is sticky. I've never heard this word used outside of the context of honey and babies until coming to HBS. Everyone here wants to build a sticky product. Something that is sticky is basically something that people can't stop using or can't stop paying for. It suggests extreme, sometimes incomprehensible loyalty, and usually very high switching cost. Amazon is sticky. De Beers Diamond campaign is sticky. Apple's ecosystem makes their products even stickier. Blue. Our mom lets guests give us our favorite churro treat so that their love for us will be more sticky than their love for other pets. Okay, now let's combine what we learned. Let's take the small blurb from before and add in our new vocab words. Blue and Bell. So, to pressure test the reason why you get baths is because I'm optimizing for your attitude towards water. If we double click into this further, that means I'm indexing on the fact that someday, if a black swan event happens, like you get melted chocolate on you, you might need a bath. So, I'm solving for that training now. It's part of the calculus that if you start taking baths young and have baths regularly, hoping that the baths might become a little bit more sticky, so that if you need an emergency bath someday, I can maximize my option value and I won't have to take you to the vet to get it done because they will take a large haircut. And if I just try to say the same thing in normal people words, it would sound like this instead. Blue and Bell, I'm trying to get you used to water to make sure that if something ever happens and you need a bath, I'm able to give you a bath rather than having to take you to the vet, which will be expensive. No wonder our finals have word limits. Okay, well, now you know all the most common words used here at HBS and how to sound more businessy without saying EBIT or EBITDA or NOPAT or any other random acronym. If you thought this was interesting or entertaining, please consider liking and subscribing. Until next time, bye guys!